This water? Oh, fuck. What's going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to Season 2, Episode 72 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler, not in a car this time. We are joined, as always, Adam's got the goon cover off his chair. Adam Osland is here. Will Updike is here. We're all three back. We're going to preview whatever the heck is going to happen for Clippers Mavs Game 5. We're going to relive some of the insanity from Game 4, thanks to a high five from Adam Osland himself. Going to talk some bench stuff, some Kawhi Leonard X Factor Player of the Game options. But before we get into that, thank you to everyone who's joining audibly. Thank you to everyone who's watching us. We do it on both platforms. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast and podcasts, I believe, wherever you get your pods. Before we get into the nitty gritty, it's hot in Los Angeles again. I think we hit 82, which is great. Will, how are you doing? How have these kind of 2 days off been after that crazy game for you?
Oh man, it's been so needed. That Game 4, like that was insane. That was almost too much for me to handle. It's been good though. I'm glad that it's summer. I'm already like hot and sweaty as hell, so that is that's great. Just real comfortable. No, but we can't get comfortable as Clippers fans. We got a best of 3 ahead of us. Adam, how are you doing, my man?
I'm okay. I feel all right. I'm at least happy.
Did you just wake up from a nap?
No, I didn't. I was actually here on time. Time Lord. I'm good. I'm just glad they didn't come back down 31 after I played the 31-point comeback in our Clippers Rewind segment in the pregame show where they came back against the Golden State Warriors. I was sweating it, boys. I was thinking people are going to say I'm responsible for this. I texted Brian Seaman. He got a good laugh out of it. We could all laugh afterwards, but all's well that ends well, I guess, in this case.
I'm just picturing people going, who's responsible for this? And then there's an angry mob outside your door.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was close. That I'm just so, as Will said, I'm just so happy it didn't happen. That would have been, these 2 days would have been horrible.
Especially after Paul George in the first quarter already gave the little shoulder thing that PJ Washington did against them in Game 3, saying, I'm standing on business.
Yeah, Paul George has never really put his foot in his mouth before, so thankfully that didn't happen, I guess. I did like PJ Washington's response to that today. He was asked about it, and he was like, it's the playoffs. Like, he did it, I did it, then he played well, and he did it. He was kind of like, I like it. Like,
you remember that time that CP3 did the shimmy on Steph? I think it was when he was with the Rockets, and Steph had to own it and be like, I shimmy on guys. I get shimmied on, I guess, now too. It's only fair. So that's not a bad response.
Sometimes you give this shimmy, sometimes you get shimmied on, I believe, is the old saying. We're talking Game 4. What should we do? Will, should we jump into this Adam Osland high five edition?
Oh, yeah.
Should we knock it out before we talk the injury?
I like that you're asking me, not Adam.
Yeah. Well, he's got to do the technical stuff.
Yeah. What do you think, Will? Are we about that high five life right now?
I'm thinking it's time for a high five.
All right. 5 highlights from Game 4, one of the craziest, wildest playoff games that the Clippers have been involved in, and that is saying something, actually.
Yes.
We'll start things off with some defense here from James Harden on Luka Doncic, who I do think it's worth pointing out since we've talked about how Kawhi Leonard has looked banged up when he was playing in this series, especially in Game 3. Luka Doncic does not look right coming out of Game 3 with whatever was going on with his knee. He called it stiffness. More on that, but James Harden actually on this play, you think it's an easy ISO here for Luka Doncic. He has the matchup he wants. He's showing off the handle, moves to his right. James Harden stays with him, goes between the legs again. James Harden's right there. And that's a very well contested shot. In fact, it's the only one he made on James Harden in the ball game. He was 1 for 6 going off the matchup data against the Bearded Wonder. And that's a great defensive effort from James Harden.
I love the Bearded Wonder. Yeah, when are we going to get a large essay from Twitter accounts about how good everyone else's defense has been? Luka played good defense for one game, and we got like inundated with how good he was at defense, and now he looks like a traffic cone again.
To be fair, he's hurt.
Yeah, that's sure.
He's definitely hurt. But so was Kawhi when he was going at Luka in that game too, and everybody says Luka locked him up. So we'll try to be consistent with it. So an interesting play here. Pin down screen from Ivica Zubac. This is later in the first quarter as they're trying to get Paul George going, and boy, did they. He scored as many points in the first quarter as the Dallas Mavericks, with 16 of them. You catch a pin down screen here from Ivica Zubac as George gets the basketball on a bounce pass from James Harden. Curls doesn't settle for the jumper here, doesn't try to fade away. Daniel Gafford's waiting for him. PJ Washington's all over him, Derek Jones Jr., and just goes right around him as Luka Doncic got the hell out of the way on the right block. And this is when he can use his size. He's huge. He's 6'9". Get to the basket. Get some easy ones to go before you get those crazy threes that were well contested by PJ Washington and you stunt on him like that or whatever you want to call it. This is what Paul George is very much capable of. He can play much bigger than he does, and I think he needed to in that game. And coming off just scoring 7 points in game 3, it was a quick way to just get him in a rhythm, and I just like what Coach Lou was thinking there, and Ivica Zubac's helping him out with that screen. Nothing?
Yeah, I mean that's a solid one. It's a solid finish. Should he have fed Amir though in the corner? Get Amir going? He's what, 2 of 7?
Should he have fed Amir? The best question.
Was it the wrong read?
The best question after that half that Paul George had. He made a lot of shots. I thought he could have fed Amir a couple more times.
Let's see here. Let's review. Was Will right about that? Collapses the defense. He could have kicked it out.
I mean,
I'm a little more concerned with Paul George getting it going than Amir Coffey. I feel like if he doesn't get it going, they're probably not going to win the ball game. But yeah, I can understand that too. Amir was willing and ready.
Rich get richer mentality.
That's me. Here is a bad shot here from Russell Westbrook in the mid-range on the far side. He just drops in. He's trying for the fadeaway here. Russ is 4 for his last 24 from the field, going back the last 3 games of this series now. It has been rough for Russ on the offensive end. I've liked some of the defense, some of the extended possessions due to rebounds, but he has taken some brutal, ill-advised shots. This would be one of them on 2 defenders. Let's see. There's 15 seconds left on the shot clock. I'm not sure what's going on here. So Russell Westbrook misses this one, doesn't get it to go. And here's some poor transition defense from your Los Angeles Clippers. Terrence Mann hits the floor. He would have been a guy trying to slow down Luka Doncic. He's been magnificent all series long. This is the best defensive series probably of his career. And that's also saying something. Terrence Mann has been really good, but he's taken his defense to another level in this series when people were saying, his point of attack defense on the season, it's been pretty good, but not spectacular. Well, maybe this is playoff Terrence Mann. He also can ramp things up come playoff time because he hasn't been playing defense this good, this consistently all season long. But the Clippers here, and as I mentioned, James Harden with a nice defense early on Luka Doncic, here he needs to get back. PJ Washington is coming, and Luka Doncic is going to find him. Norman Powell calls it out. James Harden looks. It's way too late here. An easy lob from almost half court to PJ Washington. But you can at least see James Harden with the shame face there, scratching his head, knowing that was, in fact, off on him in that situation. So Clippers, obviously, as they have improved greatly in that area in the playoffs, there's still work to be done there.
Yeah, and it was spurned by a really, really bad Russ decision. And I think that those have been some of the more difficult things is just the IQ at times. Like, we just know that he's better and he's seen more to not sort of be making these types of mistakes.
Plus, his plus minus would be so much better. He's still like plus 13 or something insane.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like you said, Adam, like he's had some, he's like, we know about the energy. He's had some solid things on the defensive end. Offensively, still something they've got to figure out. And if he's not scoring, which is fine, we don't really need him to. He just has to be making good decisions with the ball in his hands. That's it. Yeah,
and a lot of these missed shots aren't even of the layup variety, which we know he's had an issue with. He's taking bad shots, 3-pointers, long twos, a fadeaway there. It's just he's playing outside of himself a little bit too much. More on Russ coming up here. But we do have a nice set here that gets a little pick and roll action between James Harden and Ivica Zubac. Here's Harden in the far side corner. Gets an off-ball screen from Terrence Mann. Luka Doncic is playing way off of him. And now you get the dribble handoff from Big Zoo, Ivica Zubac. Derek Lively has to get up here. He's got to fully hedge this. He's at the level, but they're trying to trap him. It's him and Kyrie Irving. He lets James Harden get around him while Ivica Zubac is going to roll towards the basket here. Easy bounce pass inside. It's Luka Doncic. He's not going to be able to defend that.
Yeah.
And what's he going to do? Foul him?
Like, maybe.
give him the and one. I would say that's probably just let that one go. But it's a nice set play by the Clippers as they were rolling at this point, up 51-24 it was. We got one more here in the high five as the float goat showed up late in this ball game. I actually used to say that all the time for Isaiah Hartenstein, who had an insane floater. He was like 70%. It was crazy. But
he'd be a great Clipper.
It was James Harden first picking on Luka Doncic with these floaters. He got 2 on him initially, and then he got 2 on PJ Washington, and in between, Maxi Kleber had to suffer his wrath with these floaters. I'll move to the second one on Luka Doncic here. The first one was impressive. It was a little acrobatic move to get to it by James Harden. As Coach Lee was imploring him, apparently, get to your floater, get to your floater. It's there. You don't need to pass the basketball. It's your time. First, we see Paul George run a little ghost screen. He gets over to the right-hand side, and Derrick Jones Jr. follows him the entire way. Good defense by him. But James Harden is now isolated against Luka Doncic. And one of the things that changed in this game was in the last 6 minutes, Russell Westbrook was off the floor. So you had a little bit more spacing at the end of this game as opposed to what we saw at the end of game 2, where it was just brutal and they were completely sagging off of Russ. And that play, in fact, where Luka Doncic was able to hang with Kawhi Leonard, part of that was because Kawhi was looking past him and Maxi Kleber was just hanging out shadowing as well because his man was Russell Westbrook and you just let him hang in the corner. Now the difference is you got Norman Powell there, and even Terrence Mann is 7 of 14 so far in this series from 3. Zoo's hanging out in the dunker spot. Maxi Kleber's in at the 5. They're going small. They have been. But watch James Harden here get to his floaters. He can easily get by Luka Doncic, who just, I'm telling you guys, he does not look right at all. He also was grimacing a lot in this ball game. I think it's affecting both sides of the basketball. But Maxi Kleber is so far back in the drop. I understand it to a degree. Ivica Zubac could easily catch a lob here, but PJ Washington is trying to front him, and it's just barbecue chicken. Like, you can't let a guy get that easy of a floater, and that's what Dallas Mavericks fans were so upset with late in the fourth quarter with Jason Kidd not putting back in Lively or Gafford here, as James Harden caught a rhythm and just easily was able to detonate with the float game. Here's the one with Maxi Kleber for a little bit of a bonus here in the high 5. He's got to beat Zubac if he wants him here. It's too easy. It's far too easy here. So that ultimately was the difference in the ball game. 5 floaters in the fourth quarter when he was shooting 37% from 5 to 9 feet during the regular season. Unbelievable. They gave up the shot. They gave up, I guess, the 31-point comeback. They weren't able to complete it because of James Harden late.
Yeah, it was such a stark difference from those earlier matchups against the Timberwolves in the season when the Timberwolves were giving James Harden the floater. That was how they were defending him. They're like, fine, if this is open, if you want it. And he just wouldn't take it. It was kind of like when he first was getting used to the catch and shoot thing for the Clippers. So he just continues to get better at things that help the Clippers out, which is like, again, hats off to James Harden. This has been a fantastic tenure for him all around.
Four, I would say, really pretty exceptional games from him. When we've needed him in a big way, and he's really stepped up so far.
He's been their best player, right?
Best player in the series.
Yeah,
both teams. I think you can make the argument.
I think it's either him or Kyrie right now, and I would give the slight edge to James Harden, I'd say, because he helped win 2 games without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, and he's a Clipper.
Chuck thumbs downs that.
I didn't believe it. These reactions are getting me.
You saw the thought bubble. The jig is up.
I saw it.
You wanted to thumbs down that.
A wonderful high five as always. Reliving that. You can relive that on YouTube if you want to watch it. And Adam does a great job of calling it out audibly too. My barber listens to it. God damn it. My barber listens to our pods and he still enjoys the high five. Shout out Silver Lake Barbershop, where Adam needs to go.
We got to get Adam over there. We got to get the whole crew.
Got to get the whole crew. It's a Clippers barbershop.
What are you guys trying to say?
You need to go to the barbershop when you get a haircut.
I go to my own Fades and Blades in Burbank.
I don't know. Never heard of it.
Made it up.
Great name. You should maybe start that business. So getting into game 5 tomorrow, Kawhi Leonard, for those of you wondering, he didn't practice. He's already been ruled out. The way the schedule's set up, they play tomorrow, they play Friday, they play Sunday. I don't think he's coming back the rest of the series. It shouldn't be a huge surprise. It sucks, but it shouldn't be a huge surprise.
The word, though, is still, at least from what we've heard, that we've still heard that there's no structural damage, right? Like they did an MRI.
Scans. Yeah.
So I guess that is positive. I really don't know. But he can't be out there at 60%. It's just it's not going to work.
From what we saw from game 2 to game 3 and the steep decline he had with his movement, it was shocking, really. It was scary to have to see him out there in pain, not wanting to drop down after that alley-oop dunk because he was afraid of landing on his knee.
Oh, my God.
That, to me, is the moment where Lawrence Frank said, okay, enough. He may want to play, but sorry, we got to protect players from themselves. I don't know anything. It's pure speculation, of course. It's just inflammation for a month now. What is going on? It just
it can't. So inflammation can be a multi-week thing. I'm not a doctor, but just from my brief Googling.
You're not a doctor?
No, shit.
We have to rethink this whole pod.
Shit, the jig is up.
Dr. Shapp ain't in the building.
Well, we should contact Dr. Shapp.
He's talked about it. He's curious about it too.
From what we've heard, as he was describing it, is basically when you have as many knee things as Kawhi has had, there's not a lot of cartilage left. It's bone on bone, and he kind of has the knee of someone who is very old, right? Like if you think about how this works, he's having inflammation. Like this is what happens when you have old knees.
But the thing is, it happened like that. It didn't progressively happen towards the last month of the season. It was everything was fine, and then it wasn't. And I think Dr. Shapp talked about that too. That's what makes this so perplexing. And for it to be inflammation, typically inflammation and swelling, to my knowledge, is your body alerting you that there's some injury going on, but they can't seem to get it under control, and there's no structural damage. You know, everybody's baffled by it right now, but we're hoping for the best. What else can we do?
I mean, yeah, I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is he did not look ready in game 3. He did not look like he should be on the floor. So we're just going to have to operate under the assumption that he is not ready to go, and we have no idea when he will.
It was basically exactly what I feared. Everybody talking about, oh, he'll be back for this game. Well, him being back for game 2, that wasn't the hurdle to clear. The hurdle to clear was how he was going to respond after playing his first game in over 3 weeks. And apparently, according to Kawhi Leonard himself, it didn't respond the way they wanted it to. And obviously, you could see it in game 3. It was just, oh, man.
Yeah.
That was a guy who had his powers taken away, and that's hard to watch.
Totally. Yeah, it was brutal. For the other side, Tim Hardaway Jr. had a setback in their scrimmage today, so he's out for game 5. He's already been ruled out, which is interesting. Their lineup gets shorter. We talked about this a little bit. The schedule's getting a little hectic. How are we feeling about the fatigue levels? I know we just talked about Luka, who I was perusing some Mavs fans areas. They're very worried about his health and stuff like that. Does it feel kind of even though? Like between these two, I know we're an older team right now, but like the Clippers haven't been run out at any point. They haven't looked like they've been too slow.
Well, this is the second 2 days off in the middle of this series they have gotten. Going to Dallas, they got 2 days off. Now back to LA, they've gotten 2 days off. But Luka, he ended up playing 46 minutes in that game too.
Yeah.
And Coach Lou was kind of joking about that at one point with reporters, calling him Coach Tibbs, Jason Kidd. But you look at James Harden. He played 39 minutes in game 1, 42, 44, 40 last game. I got to say, though, he has looked very good. I mean, one of the most encouraging signs is what we just saw. He was able to attack and get downhill with those floaters as he'd been playing extended minutes, and he still had enough juice to get by guys. It wasn't just Luka who looks hampered out there. He got by PJ Washington. He got by Maxi Kleber too. So I'm not saying I'm not concerned, because I am, because there's that cumulative effect. They add up, the accumulation of minutes over time. But I guess to your point, it's felt like both teams have had to go deep into playing their stars a heavy dosage of minutes right now.
I mean, the travel is a little bit rough. I think that to me, sure. I think that to me is like a little bit more concerning. If it was just a regular like day of rest in between without travel, I think that's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, you add the travel in there with older players. I mean, I hope they're bringing their compression socks. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, that's a good call.
Copper Tone.
Are you rocking them right now? Is there a sponsorship possibility for this?
Was that Brett
Copper
Favre
Tone
and Jerry
sunscreen?
Rice? Okay, Copper Tone sunscreen. What was the thing? Copper Top? No, that's Duracell. Whatever the hell. It was like up there with the Power Balance stuff when it came to
Gold Toe. Wasn't Gold Toe?
Gold Toe socks are a thing. Yeah.
Brett Favre and Jerry Rice used to rep it in some commercial back in the day. I don't know. The healing powers of copper.
For any copper
magnate. I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. For any copper magnates watching this, we will wear your pseudoscience bullshit product if you pay us to wear it.
Yeah, and fly us out to Butte, Montana.
Absolutely. The Paris of the West, as it was once said.
Capital of the world at one point, I think.
It was. And Butte, Montana had the most millionaires per capita at one point in the world. All right. This is
Moving on from Butte.
Coming up after this quick ad break, we're going to talk what we need from PG and Harden. Maybe Amir Coffee taking more shots. But we got some ads coming up for the audio listeners. Those are coming up. And then we're right back in 3, 2, 1.
All right. So we're back in on Clips and Dip. We just relived the craziness of Game 4. That was a wild one. Now we're going to look ahead some more to Game 5. And, I think what it comes down to, top performer-wise, is what can we expect from PG and Harden? I mean, hopefully Harden can continue to be as consistent as he's been throughout this series. But Adam, what the hell? What do we expect from PG in this series? He's been so up and down. There have been some highs. Certainly, the first half of Game 4 and the insane shot that he hit in the fourth quarter. I thought Game 1 he was pretty exceptional defensively, but otherwise, man, it was kind of a quiet Game 2 and a stinker of a Game 3.
Yeah, and there's definitely a connection to him being in foul trouble in Games 2 and 3 specifically. And I do think, to be fair, he wasn't getting a great whistle. Do you have to fight through it?
Yeah.
Can you belabor that? No. You can't let that get into your head. But if he's not out there on the floor, he can't gain a rhythm and can't get his timing going. And sure enough, him staying out of foul trouble in that first half did the trick. And then he was guarding Kyrie and Luka more in the second half of Game 4. Once, you got fouls to give at that point, since I think he had 0 fouls through the first 24 minutes, that makes things a little bit easier for you to play that aggressive brand of basketball.
So more Terrence Mann and Amir could help out Paul George. Could get Paul George going if they're willing to take on some of those defensive sides.
That's been part of the trick, right? I mean, both of those guys, there's 3 guys in the starting lineup right now with Amir Coffey in for Kawhi Leonard that can guard 2 guys in Kyrie and Luka Doncic. There's 3 different guys you can throw at him. But Amir and Terrence Mann are more than capable of taking up that challenge to start off the ball game and letting Paul George just ease his way in offensively, then eventually maybe flip the switch a little bit in the second half with his defense and big possessions and things like that. And I thought he had some good ones late in the fourth quarter, even with the Dallas Mavericks going off the way they were in Game 4. But I wonder what it does for him confidence-wise. Hitting that shot, which might have been the toughest shot of the playoffs so far. He talked about it today on Podcast P.
Jesus.
It was insane. Apparently, Kyrie Irving's dad was like, oh. And he's seen a lot of amazing shots from his son. So that's quite the compliment. But you hit that shot in that moment. That was the biggest shot of the game. As good as James Harden was, he was the best player in the fourth quarter. The biggest shot of the game was right after Kyrie Irving gets that crazy layup to go over 3 Clippers who were there with double clutching it and maneuvering the ball around and somehow not getting blocked. They go up by
That body
1.
control is insane.
Dude.
Like it's unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go up by 1 after being down 31, and you start to think that the Clippers may break.
I feel like I'm feeling it again. I feel like I'm stressed all over again.
Yeah, it was a nail biter type of game, but I don't know if any team that has given up a lead that significant, anything around 25 points, 20 to 30 points, because we know there's only been 2 31-point comebacks. The Clippers have done one of them against the Golden State Warriors. They've had one happen to them, but then they ended up closing out the game anyways. It's got to be rare to actually not let them complete the comeback after that uphill grind.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's why that Paul George shot is so big, because I like
that's what
momentum.
I mean.
Like momentum is such a big thing. Like something like that. I mean, you can settle back in. You know, like it's okay. Like we got this. And I really liked Ty Lue going into that fourth quarter. Like they went on a run. They came back. We win this quarter. We win the game. Like that. It's that simple. You don't have to dwell on. You don't have to dwell on the 31 points or whatever you were up. That's at this point it does not matter. All that matters is the next 12 minutes. And I thought that they were able to really lock in and focus in on that and close out the game. And I mean, it was a nail biting fashion, but hell of a game. Probably the best game of the first round.
Yeah, it was either that or the game 2 with the Murray shot or the game 5 with the Murray shot. I don't know.
Murray shot.
No, but that's exactly my point. That's why it was the biggest shot of the ball game, because all the momentum was with the Dallas Mavericks, and he hits a silencer shot that the degree of difficulty, it's an all-time shot. I'm hoping that has some carryover for him. A performance like that, coming up big like that. Not that he hasn't before in playoff games, especially as a Clipper, but I just want to see him start fast, not necessarily 26 points in the first half fast. I don't expect that. But just get around 15 points in the first half, maybe in game 5 back at home, because he should get like a hero's welcome after hitting that shot and saving the game.
Yeah, be on pace for 30. I like that. We've talked about PG bumping it up to like 27th. Be on pace for 30 and at half, and that would be phenomenal.
Are we calling that one PG's backboard revenge?
Yeah,
I feel like there's a famous clip of him getting robbed by the backboard, and then there's one where he goes at it.
Yeah, I think the one that
count the bubble. So
I think the one that
of course, I'm just saying. Yeah, the shot has to have a name. It's that good.
The backboard that he shot over in Dallas, I think, was that backboard from the bubble's cousin. So there was definitely some kind of renewed anger there. I think that makes a lot of sense. We were talking about the James Harden floaters. A lot of fans were upset that lively Mavs fans, Clippers fans were loving whatever Jason Kidd was not doing at that time. There's got to be, my guess, here's what I hope happens, is I think that Jason Kidd is going to overreact to those floaters and maybe tell guys to pinch up a little bit to take that space away. And we're going to see, I hope, again, this is what I'm hoping, we're going to see, remember how Zoo looked on those plays? He's going to fill that space. Hopefully we get some good Russ to fill that space when they share the court. And Harden is good enough that if they have a counter for his floater, which is going to be pressed up more in the paint, he's going to be able to find guys cutting. So I'm really hoping that we get an over adjustment from Jason Kidd on that, and Harden can continue to be the best player in the series and maybe get a little more distribution versus scoring. Not that I don't like the scoring, but if the easier scoring is there, James Harden will find it.
I'm hoping if they adjust to it, all it means is Lively or Gafford step up too far to where then it turns into an alley-oop to Ivica Zubac. That's a predicament that puts you in when you can't stay in front of your man in that situation with how good James Harden has been historically in his career. I know what he shot with the floater this season, but that's what always made him so devastating. Is it a floater? Is it a lob? That's what he did all the time with the Houston Rockets, working with Clint Capella.
Yeah. Because other than that, I don't know how else you counter it. If you're Jason Kidd, you just let it happen again, which I would also
hope that the law of averages sort of evens out. What he's been on the season,
which it might, but I don't know.
The other thing is guys were playing so close up on him because they didn't want to give up the three. That's why he was able to get around them so easily. It's not that all of a sudden he found the fountain of youth. The way they were playing him just allowed him to get that step on defenders. Even PJ Washington twice.
Yeah. I do like that he might have found the fountain of youth, though, because he looks great.
He definitely saved something for the playoffs. I think that's confirmed at this point. He has shown way more burst in this first-round series than we saw in the month of March. Like, he's already had more blow-bys probably in this first-round series in 4 games than he had total in the month of March, where it looked like he was really regressing and looked tired out there.
Which is crazy because his minutes are still super high. His total minutes at the end of the season is going to be unreal for the Clippers.
In-game rest.
In-game rest? The great ones do it. Oh, man. We talked a little bit about Amir, too. Briefly, Will wanted PG to find Amir in the corner there. We've talked about Terrence Mann has shown he can hit shots. He's, 7 for 14? This thumbs down is going to be the death of me.
Don't believe in those shots. Not high enough volume, huh?
He's 7 of 14 from 3 so far. He said today that there's no way they make me score in the paint, knowing he's going to continue to get open threes rather than paint opportunities. I think we're all pretty okay with that, with how he's been shooting the ball. But do we think the ball is going to funnel more by design to Amir Coffey? He's only made 2. The most field goals attempts he's made in a game this series is 2. So I feel like the Mavs are going to do their best to rotate everything over and try and get Amir to be the one to either make a decision or try and make a shot.
He wasn't the guy on the court with that Powell Rangers lineup without Kawhi Leonard at the end of that game 4. It was Powell, it was Mann, it was Norm, it was Big Zoo. What else am I forgetting here?
Powell, Norm, Mann, Zoo.
Was it Amir?
Paul George.
Paul George. Who could forget? Yeah.
Apparently.
That was the last 6 minutes. The biggest adjustment at the end of that game, the reason why it worked for the Dallas Mavericks in games 2 and in game 3, Russ stands, earmuffs, is because Russell Westbrook was out there on the floor and they just completely decided not to guard him. That's how they were able to pack the paint.
Yeah.
The difference was they have to respect Terrence Mann enough, and then also having Norm Powell out there, who's been much better the last 2 games now. He seems to be finding his groove.
And you can't leave Norm wide open. It doesn't matter how cold he's been. There's no way you're leaving a wide open Norm Powell shot on. Like, he could be 1 for 11 in the game. I just don't think there's any way that you're sagging off him.
No, they came into this series knowing his reputation and what he had been doing all season and keying in on him and taking him away because they knew how important he's been to this Clippers team all year. So, yeah, I don't think guys are going to be able to ditch that game plan assignment, especially because he's bounced back now. He looks like himself again. So, to me, that's what it comes down to. Coach Lou's talking about spacing, getting our spacing right. It's like, well, if Russ is on the floor, it's really hard to do that sometimes. It just is what it is. Like, you certainly can't have him and Ivica Zubac out there late in ball games and expect to have a lot of success. Zoo wasn't clogging the paint because he was just outside enough on the baseline in the dunker spot to give James Harden room and to be a threat to catch that lob at the same time. So I love what they found there late in game 4. That to me does have some legs to it. That will make, as you mentioned, Chuck, Jason Kidd have to adjust.
Yeah, the counters are going to be interesting because obviously Ty Lue's, I think, been the better coach this series, given what he's had to deal with absence-wise and everything like that. Jason Kidd has had some pretty okay counters, right? Like, we haven't.
Oh, I think game 1 to game 2, I thought was impressive.
That's big of you guys.
I mean, yeah, if you listen to this pod, you know how much it hurts me to have to say that. The man wears clear glasses.
He did put his hat on. He put his hat on straight for game 2, and you know what? Tip of the cap to him.
Wait, was it backwards for game 4?
Oh, good question. I can't remember. I didn't watch. I didn't see that presser.
I heard it was sideways.
Dude, if he came out with the sideways hat, I'd be like, oh, no.
Well, what about this? 2 hats, 1 forward, 1 backward.
That way you're covered any occasion. Yeah, I think Amir's, they're not going to make Amir take like 15 shots or something like that. But if Amir can keep him honest with the ones that they give him, shoot a respectable percentage from three, like, 3 of 7 would be great, or like 2 of 5. Or
I don't
like,
think he's going to have 7 attempts.
I hope not. But that percent, you know what I'm saying? Like that percentage area, like around like the 4, when you only, like it would just, and I hope that for Amir, because he's had, it's been up and down for Amir in these playoffs.
He has 12 points total in the 4 games. Now, he only played 12 minutes and 18 minutes in games 2 and 3. But in the games where he's gotten the start without Kawhi Leonard, 25 minutes in game 1, he had 6 points, 2 3-pointers in there. 23 minutes in game 4, only had 4 points, 0 of 1 from the outside. He had a mid-range jumper, which he's really good at. When Amir gets into his bag with that little turnaround from 10 feet out, that's money for him. It's been like that all season long. So I hope he's aggressive out there. And
that's another one where he really holds on it too in the air. I fucking love that. Like stylistically, I love the way that shot looks for Amir.
Yeah, that's a good call.
The new NBA logo.
some are saying that. Yeah, on the year. Wow, I didn't realize this. Yeah, you're totally right, Adam. On the year,
Mr. West.
From 10 to 16 feet, he's shooting 50%, which is always going to be usually that weird little jumper. Like,
that's great.
Amir. Yeah. So yeah, I think Amir is going to be a bit of a focal point for them to try and funnel stuff too. And I have confidence in it. I just hope it happens early. You know what I mean? I hope he can get feeling a little comfortable early, because he does have room for the late game heroics. We have seen him make important shots to quell runs from other teams. We've seen him kind of stop the bleeding a little bit. Totally.
For a guy who was like undrafted, first year in an NBA rotation, the guy is so unfazed by big moments. Like, he just has whatever that mentality is.
That gopher blood, that Minnesota gopher.
Absolutely.
I liked his demeanor after game 3. He was asked about being down 2 games to 1. He was like, well, we knew it was going to be a tough series. This is what it is. So he didn't seem rocked by any means. And as you mentioned, he's been good in his career in late game situations. A friend of mine would say coffee is for closers.
Alec Baldwin?
Yeah, him first, then Brian Seaman.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
I have faith in Amir if he's in the ball game late, but I would like to see them go right back to the lineup that worked in game 4 and make the Mavericks have to make a decision on whether or not they want to have one of their big men back in the ball game, because I think there are still buckets to be made. All they did was spread out the floor and let James Harden go to work, and then that threat of Ivica Zubac there. That's it, because they had shooters out there that had to be respected. That's how you get your spacing right. So I think they found something.
Let's hope they did. Coming up, we're going to be talking some bench versus bench stuff, and then wondering what happens if the three-point shooting isn't the best that it's been all season during Game 5. We got some loud ads coming up for those on audio. If that's your case, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads, and then bench on bench and normal shooting percentage talk in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in. It's Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Oslin. It's episode 72 of season 2. We got Chuck Mockler. We got Will Updike. We got a 2-2 series in the 4-5 matchup, which tracks. Everybody thought it could be a coin flip. At least it's supposed to be. And the Clippers
everybody, to be fair.
Sure. Not 90% of the media. My bad. They had a double-sided two-face coin.
Yeah.
They're making their own luck. But this Clippers team, as good as they were in Game 4, there were a couple of outliers, I would say. You can't necessarily just punch in, James Harden and Paul George are both going to get 33 in Game 5. So where else do those points come from? We talked about Amir Coffey a little bit, and we've also talked about the three-point shooting and how hot it's been in their victories, which also is not sustainable. The Dallas Mavericks so far in this series, the Clippers are shooting only 50% in the restricted area. That's the lowest of any team in a playoff series right now. Wow. The Mavericks are trying their best to take away the restricted area, and it's worked for the most part. Now, the Clippers, they've been able to knock down some of those open threes because they're selling out to stop drives. Couldn't stop James Harden, but because they're trying to take away easy buckets at the basket, that does give up more threes, and the Clippers for 2 of the games and their wins have been able to knock them down. But the bench, that could be very much needed with what Norman Powell has been doing. We talked about him the last couple of games. That bench matchup is going to be critical, especially as guys tend to get more tired as the series goes along. These starters that are playing heavy minutes, it could be a bench player that swings a game 5 or 6 or 7 here.
Yeah, who do we think? Who are we feeling, on the Mavs side, right? They're running Lively, Kleba, and Green. Kleba looked good in
Kleba. I think if it's anybody, it's going to be Kleba.
He was good in game 2 and then just neutralized for the most part out of that. We've really kind of figured out how to deal with him, which has been great. But I think you might be right, Will. If he can stretch that floor for them and provide some big body defense, if he can, that's a issue for the Clippers bench.
I thought Dante Exum would have been a guy in this series that really would have helped out Kyrie and Luka because he has all season long. He's been kind of a safety valve. He shot 50% from 3. It was on low volume, but it's because he was knocking down a lot of open shots. He was getting a lot of open shots with those two guys next to him. But he also hit some critical shots against the Lakers. He had, I want to say he had 7 threes or 6 threes in a ball game to beat them. He had a game-winning shot against the Houston Rockets. I thought with how good of a season he had, especially because defensively, he's playing really good there. He would be the guy, if any, to burn the Clippers in this series coming off the bench. But so far, he's been, for the most part, ineffective out there. He's only taken a couple of shots per game. Like he took 4 shots in game 1 in game 2, only played 6 minutes, 12 minutes in game 3. And I think that was really his opportunity. And he went 0 for 4 because he only got 2 minutes in their last game in game 4. So I'm thrown for a loop a little bit by not much Dante Exum being used by Jason Kidd in the series, but it tracks. He hasn't played well.
Interestingly enough, Dante Exum, per Tomer Azarly, was the Mavs jersey today at Clippers practice. If you've been following this on social media, first couple days it was Luka, obviously, and then it was Kleba. Today it was Exum, which I was like, is this gamesmanship? Like, what is this for? But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Lively is very much trending up with Mavs fans. They want to see Lively in there to try and combat some stuff. Will, are you thinking he's maybe number 2 behind Kleba right now?
It just seems like he's going to lean into offense a little bit more because that's what we've seen throughout the series.
That's a good call.
So I think Kleba makes a little bit more sense there too.
Yeah.
I honestly think, I don't know, it's close. I think Lively's probably been better, but I mean, he's a big, it's just different. Like that,
I think he's been better. That's not what I'm saying. I think like if someone is going to like swing this game 5, to me, I see it as being someone like Kleba. I'm not saying take that to the bank, but hey, maybe.
Lock of the week.
When Kleba didn't play big minutes in game 3 after what he did in game 2 with him playing small ball late, I think that surprised the Clippers some. Now, it was because Derek Lively and Gafford had 10 alley-oops, I think they caught in game 3. But still, that we were anticipating more of that small ball. We got more of it in game 4, but the Clippers actually took advantage of it. So it's almost like they learned from what happened at the end of game 2. They're able to counter that strategy now with Maxi Kleba as the 5 for the Dallas Mavericks. So will Dallas have to go back to having one of their true bigs out there late? I think that's the big question mark, whether or not they stay big late now.
Yeah, they're in the same thing Clippers fans talk about all the time, which is we don't care who starts, who's finishing this game for them. I thought we talked about this a little bit on the post-game pod, the drive time pod, quite literally. We haven't talked about it, but hats off to Mason Plumlee for that game 4. He did a lot of good shit in that game. I mean, he's been really spelling his minutes well. So I hope that continues because if he has to come in for any extended time, that's when things get a little worried. But short dose Plum, micro dose Plum has been exactly what the Clippers have needed these last couple games.
Well, I mean, I heavily criticized him after games 2 and 3. I thought he was pretty bad in those games. Even in limited minutes, he was still pretty bad. In game 4, he had a great stint in that fourth quarter. He caught that alley-oop from James Harden. He had a tip in, and then he also had a pass to Russ for a layup. His defense was solid. He had to guard Kyrie at one point out on the perimeter. He did lose that battle.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd sign up for Mason Plumlee continuing to play the way he did at the end of game 4. If they could get that out of him, and maybe that's why you stick with him. And I was wrong. Instead of going back to Daniel Tice or trying something else with PJ Tucker, they just felt like Mason Plumlee at some point, he's still their best option. And he'll give them good enough minutes in one of these games. And that could, I mean, I don't know if they win the game without him, honestly.
That's fair. We can't go small. It's not very good. Like we need, and Tyler's game plan is very clearly size at the 5 when kind of available for the most part.
Yeah, with no Kawhi, I just don't really see how we can go. I don't see how we can go super small.
Yeah, for extended periods of time. It's just, well, it's like we've talked about,
especially because
right?
we can't use Russ at the 5. Like the spacing is just, it's too wonky.
They can't stop anybody, and scoring is really hard. So it's like, well, if you can't stop and the scoring isn't really smooth, probably not the best lineup. And then it's a bit of a gamble on what we're getting for Russ's 19 to 24 minutes tomorrow. We don't really know what's going to happen. He's been good, as we've said, at pretty much everything other than shooting the ball. So we just have to.
Well, and some of the decision making, like I wasn't expecting him to like light it up offensively or anything. Like he's just got to make the right decisions with the ball in his hands, and that's oftentimes not a fadeaway 13-footer
with 15 seconds left on the shot clock. Yeah, I think that's fair. So happy they have the break. The 2-day break is huge for this team. Ty Lue coached really well. You know, they gave up the 31-point lead. Whatever, it's the playoffs. Crazy shit happens.
Did you guys feel like it was so much a collapse, or just Kyrie Irving got really hot? He had 40 points. All 40 of his points came in the last 3 quarters. I didn't feel like they were playing that bad when Dallas was coming back.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was like a fall apart. I mean, I know that's like the narrative, and that's how everyone phrased it.
Survived.
But
it didn't look like
obviously every time it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but I think to just say that the Clippers blew it is definitely underwriting how exceptional Kyrie Irving was during that stretch. Like he took the reins and rocked it.
And the rotations weren't weird. It's not like we were playing like PJ Tucker. Like, it's not like Ty was making insane decisions during this. Like it was just Kyrie's done this 3 games now, where he's just had a quarter or an extended time where he's just not missing anything.
He's that good. Like I don't know what to say. Like there's times it doesn't matter how well you contest him. Like he's gonna score.
I know what to say for those people who are like, Kyrie's had a couple of really bad playoff series, his last 2. He's not as good as you guys think. Yes, he is, and he was more than due, and he was ready for the moment. And Kyrie has been.
You already brought it up, but that shot over 3 defenders. I mean, like around, not even over, like around the 3 defenders, like threading the needle.
Some of the threes were unconscious too. Also, Paul George had a rear view block on one of his threes late in the 4th quarter. That was a huge play because it was probably going in with how hot he was.
Yeah. And we'd be remiss not to mention before we pick our Kawhi Leonard player of the game inaugural X Factor MVP picks of the night. If the threes aren't falling at a 56 to 61% rate, let's feed Big Zoo. We haven't even mentioned Big Zoo on this pod yet. But that's something I'm looking forward to. Another thing that Ty Lue can maybe prep him on. It's like, hey, if we don't have these, if we're not hitting these crazy contested shots, let's hopefully get some touches to Big Zoo. Because again,
how much I love easy buckets, not doing everything the hardest possible way. I was told work smart, don't work hard, work smart as a young man. That's how I live my life.
Work hard.
I wish the Clippers would think
harder from the greatest boss of all time.
Work smarter. Make Zoo work.
Yeah, there you go. Make Zoo do all the work.
Put Zoo to work.
He wants to. He's there. He's there to use his big ass body.
Carlos said he caught him in the elevator. I think it was before Game 4, and he was like, "They're gonna need you in this one." He's like, "I know. They're gonna need you to be aggressive." And he picked his spots. They still did not feed him nearly as much when the comeback was happening. To me, that's even more of a big spot to get to the basketball, slow down the game a little bit, punish them with physicality. and make them work defensively so they're not getting in transition or flying up the court as much because they're taking the ball out of the basket every time we're out of the sideline or baseline. Ivica Zubac has to be featured more in Game 5. Go back somewhat to 80% of maybe what we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, I like that. All right, now's the time for the most important part of the pod. We'll go with Adam first. Adam, who is your pick for the Kawhi Leonard Player of the Game X Factor MVP pick of the night?
I'm not going Daniel Tice again.
You can. No one's stopping.
I feel like he probably should have played Game 3 over Plumlee, but then Plumlee redeemed himself in Game 4, so who cares? I will go with – I'm going to pick Norman Powell. Norman Powell. Storming Norman back home because the first 2 games where he played poorly, he was at home. I want to see role players are supposed to play better at home.
Yeah.
That is usually what
You have
occurs.
heard that, Charles?
No, I'm trying to figure out what his home and away shooting splits are.
He scored 11 points total in the first 2 games at home. He had 11 points in Game 4 alone. He had 21 in Game 3. Some of those came during inconsequential garbage time, but yeah, he was 4 for 16 from the field his first 2 games at Crypto.com Arena.
His home road splits are insane this year. 3-point percentage home, 39.3. Very good. Nothing to sneeze at there. Do you want to know what it is on the road?
50? Is
it's
it 50?
48% on the road from 3 for Norm Powell.
That's interesting.
Wait, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. One more time.
Norm, for those of you who missed it, Norm Powell at home this year shot 39% from 3.
Oof, loser.
And away, in away games, he shot 48% from 3.
Oof, winner.
I guess if we had looked that up before the series, we would have seen it coming. But no, he wasn't even shooting 39% from 3 at home in the first 2 games. So
yeah,
he can be better. I think he will be. Norman Powell's my guy.
There you go. Will, who is your Kawhi Leonard Player of the Game, X Factor, MVP, pick of the night?
We just talked about Ivica Zubac. I'm gonna stay. You know what? I'm just gonna go with Big Uno, and I think that it's an easy pick. But man, I would love nothing more than to see this. Like, it doesn't even have to be better than what we've seen so far. Just this level of consistency from James Harden. He has really been keeping his hand on the wheel, holding this whole thing steady. I mean, keeping things from really falling apart. He's stepped up in. I mean.
You're
he just
totally
has.
right.
I mean, we've talked about him. We've given him his flowers. I still almost feel like it hasn't been enough. To anyone who doubted this trade, this is why you do it. And you know, I didn't think coming into this playoff series that there was much. I doubted how far we could go, obviously, without Kawhi Leonard. And a big part of that was I wasn't sure how consistent we could get James Harden. Right, that's kind of the mark on him, and that we don't know. You know, but. He's in a different place now, and
he's in a different place.
He's in a different place now. It's a new look. He seems happy to be doing it. I hope that, with the shortening of the schedule and everything, it doesn't mess with anything. But I'm going to say James Harden because no matter what, we need him to at least be consistent to get a win this one.
Hell yeah.
You hate Russ, huh? Okay.
Oh, wow. No.
Compared to what?
Compared to Harden, sure. Right now, as of 7:10 p.m., April 30th. All right, so we got Norm, we got Harden. Those were going to be my picks.
Dig deep.
It's not too deep. There's only 8 guys to choose from, and Paul George feels like a cheat code.
Is it though?
I mean, he did have a 7-point game in Game 3.
He did have a 7-point game in Game 3. I'm gonna go.
Swing for the fences, dude.
People were telling me after Game 4. I'm not even gonna say it. Go ahead, Chuck.
I'm going Big Zoo. I'm going Big Zoo. We know we need Paul George to be great, but Zoo with what the legs look like after it's a day after traveling. You know what I mean? I think I'm
also because of that effing no call. I was so pissed when he went to the basket and got hit by PJ Washington about 5 different times. What the refs were doing there is saying
we're going to do all season.
1,000-hand slap.
E Honda. The ref said, okay, we're going to let that go, that physicality, and just give you the basketball instead. We'll call it out on the Dallas Mavericks. We'll call it like that for a makeup call. The problem is, officials in today's league, now you have to review things like that. And when it's that plain and that obvious, you can't give the Clippers the basketball after that review. I was furious about that no call. That was insane. That was probably the worst call so far this series, or non-call.
I feel like, though, he's been getting clobbered at times all time, like all season long.
That, though, was just blatant, right in front of the referee. Picture perfect, 5 fouls that happened all at once. Washington knew it. Everybody knew it. Ugh.
If you look back at some of those Timberwolves games, as great as they were defensively, there's like there was
Thunder.
Yeah,
they're just smacking the shit out of Zoo. It was crazy. Well, that about wraps it up. We have to end it. We have to close out every episode talking about how poor the refs have been because they've been bad. They've been very bad.
Equally bad though to both sides almost.
I
don't think
either
fan base.
Just across the board.
They've been inconsistent, but consistent enough with being inconsistent on both sides, I guess.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, I haven't felt like it's been like stacked. That we're not really ref weenies on the show. We're not like whining about that the whole time. But I don't feel that it's been stacked against us. I mean, how many games have we seen across this first round of the playoffs where both coaches use challenges in the first quarter?
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Figure your shit out. Yeah, I'm tired of the manic pixie refs. I would like them to settle down and get their shit figured out. That about wraps up this episode. This game 5 Eve episode. I believe we're doing a live after the affair in downtown LA. We're all going to be in the building. Come say hey if you see us. Be a good time. There's a bunch of games coming up. I don't know. It's going to be fun. We got a bunch of content coming out. If people wanted to tell their coworkers or loved ones or not loved ones where to listen to this pod or watch us, where could they do that?
Yeah, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your enemies. You can check out this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you leave a little rating or review, it'd really help us out. Probably the best way to consume this, though, over on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. But no matter how you view or listen, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you.
We very much do. Adam, one positive thing to send these Clippers fans out so they can enjoy their evening before we're all stressed tomorrow.
Clippers win the rest of their home games, they win the series. That's simple. Best of 3, and 2 games could be at crypto. Get it done.
Get it done.
Love it.
Well, love it.
Get her done.
Okay. No. You loved everything up to that. We'll be back tomorrow with y'all on the live. Adam will have you covered on Clippers Talk. Thank you for hanging out. And as always, let's go Clips.